Okay, the next thing that I want to show you, ladies, is how to prepare your foundation papers. All right? You need to get all your foundation papers out of your pattern. Make sure that you have all the papers that you need. And then what we're going to do is a process called stack and trim technique. It's very simple. What we're going to do is we want to open up our foundation papers. On each foundation paper, you have a number in the corner. This is number 1. We have number 2, 3, and 4. Smooth that out, and then grab your next piece. Match up the numbers. So now I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we take another piece. And again, match up the numbers. Smooth out the paper. It's very important that your numbers be matched, because if you don't have your numbers matching around the 4 corners, that means your papers are backwards, and when you go to trim everything out, you're going to cut through your foundation papers. The next step is to do a stack and a match technique here. It's very simple. We're going to take a flower pin and we're going to match up the corners on one of the foundation units. And then we're going to flatten the pin down. Then we're going to take the next corner here, place the pin through the top piece, go underneath, and make sure you have the piece underneath right on the same corner, and the next piece. Flatten that. We're going to do the same thing here. We'll put the pin in the top one, come back down to the second piece, and the third one. And corner number 4, we get all 4 pieces matching. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our stapler and we're going to put a staple through those pieces right here. Then we're going to move our paper over, staple it again. Then we roll this around, and we're going to put a staple into this unit right here and staple this unit. The reason you want the staples inside the units is because you're going to cut away all the paper around the outside of each unit. All right? Now when we trim these off, we want to leave about 1/8 inch beyond the solid cut line right here. This is what I call my finished cut line. It's right here. This is the finished cut line right here. Okay? Now what I like to set up my papers so that I can trim everything in a uniform, kind of organized a little bit. We're going to pull all the 4 pins out. I'm going to turn the papers around so that you can see the cut line here that I'm going to work with. We're going to take the ruler and we're going to put it about 1/8 of an inch beyond the solid line, and we're going to trim the foundation paper off. And remove the paper. Now we're going to take this and we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to complete here along this edge. Once I get all the edges trimmed off, then I like to leave the paper setting flat so that we don't have to move things around anymore, all right? So we're going to come over here to the center piece and we're going to cut the straight line here, and then we're going to move over a little bit and cut another straight line. When we stapled through all the units, we didn't put staples in the center because I couldn't reach it. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to trim 1/8 of an inch outside that line, and then we're going to put the ruler on this line and trim 1/8 of an inch here. Now we're going to come over to this piece. I'm going to slide this over. We're going to trim this line right here. So we're going to slide this one over and trim this straight line. Okay. Now we still have all of our paper together, and we're going to turn this around like this. And the first line we're going to cut here is right along this diagonal edge. And we're going to get rid of the foundation paper there. And then we're going to slide this one over. And we're going to get rid of this foundation paper. Then we come here to the center unit, trim, and trim again. All right, so all we have left now are the curved seams to complete. So we're going to start right here in the center pieces because these aren't stapled, and so they're held solid with the staples in the outside pieces. We're going to take our rotary cutter and we're going to trim right around the edge. Don't worry about cutting your fingers. You're not going to cut them. Just hold the paper solid. Now we're going to take this curve, and again we're going to roll right through around the outside edge. Now we're going to take this one and do the same thing. And then we're going to pick this up and turn it around. I'm still trimming everything very closely to the edge because we want all of our papers to be trimmed the same size so we can stack them. We're going to take this one. And we're on our final piece. Now, I know several of you say, well, I just give it to my husband to trim. Some of you say, well, I do it when I'm watching TV. But in reality, this took you a lot less time than it did to just carry the papers up and sit down in front of the TV. The other advantage to pre-trimming them like this is all your pieces are the same size, and it makes it a lot easier when we start the actual foundation paper piecing process to work off of foundation papers that don't have a lot of excess paper around them. After the foundation paper pieces are cut, notice that I've added a binder clip to each piece. This will keep your papers together, and then you can actually put them into the bag numbers as we move through our process. All right? Before you start doing your foundation paper piecing, you need to make yourself aware of what you have. You need to become very familiar with your foundation papers, all right? If you look at our foundation papers, our papers have what we call a solid line and a dashed line, okay? The solid line is your sew line. The dashed line is the edge of the 1/4 inch seam allowance after it's been trimmed off. I want to show you with a fold template here where the solid line is. Right here I'm showing you line 11 on the foundation paper, and it falls right along that fold template. If we move the fold template over, now I'm putting it on what we call the dashed line. All right? You have to be very careful when you start doing your sewing not to sew on that dashed line, because that will make all your units the wrong size. Okay? The next thing I want you to see is the numbers. We have line 1, line 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It goes all the way up to line 20. That's the position you're going to start. We always start with line 1 and work up to 20. The next thing you need to be familiar with is your section number. We have section 1, section 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again all the way up to section 20. We also have on our foundation papers the template number, because we do build foundation templates for you to work with. We have a template piece for each one of these units, and that will be shown in the foundation paper piecing process. Okay? When I start teaching my students, I like them to always trace the back side of the very first piece of foundation paper they're working with. This gives them something to practice with before we start the chain piecing process. So I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to show you how to trace the back side. The first thing you want to do is, if you have a light table, you can actually see where the dashed lines are. And what we're going to do is we're going to start on the first dashed line, and we put our ruler here, and the only thing I'm doing is drawing a line on that dashed line. And then we move to the second dashed line, and we trace that. And then we do the third. And then we go to the fourth. After you get all the dashed lines traced, you want to come around, and we're going to actually mark where the outside edge of your piece ends. This is just to give you an idea of where to end when you're putting your fabrics underneath the foundation paper. So you're going to go through and mark along the outside. Then we take our pencil and we're going to mark the curve as well. Okay? Now what I want to show you is the finished piece of this unit. All these solid lines I marked on the back are the dashed line.